Yo, what's up, everybody? Phillies sweep the Pirates. Miles Sanders wants respect, and so much more. 30 seconds from now on Trending in the AM. Yo, it's Overreaction Monday. Can't wait.
Holding gets around in front. And Philadelphia has it.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Phil Stifle here from Trending in the AM. We are live. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Hit that like button, share button, retweet button. Follow DSM Media and us on every single social media platform. That's what we need you to do. If you want to get involved with the show, head over to the YouTube page, DSM Media YouTube page. Type in DSM Media. Watch the show there. It's the easiest way to get involved with the show, where I can put your comments, questions, thoughts up on the screen. We can read them and interact with you and give you our thoughts on your thoughts. So make sure you do that. Make sure, like I said, you hit the like and the subscribe button when you're there on YouTube. I'm your host, Phil Stifle, at Bearded Knowledge on Twitter. I got my main man, Jason Voorhees, at Mustang3651, sitting in the co-host chair today with me. Got lots to talk about. Phillies. Once you think they're out, they pull you back in with a 5-game winning streak now going. Red hot Phillies. Got the Eagles training camp still going on. We're getting into high gear there. Miles Sanders wants respect. We're going to talk about that as well. Good morning, Jason. How you doing this morning?
Doing great, man. Long weekend, tired as always on a Monday, and ready to get into all of the trending topics that we got today. So
yeah, absolutely. Let's dive right into it. Phillies. We're going to start with the Phillies because they're red hot. Like we said, or I said in the intro there, once you think they're out, this inconsistent team gets on a hot run. 5 wins in a row. 6 out of their last 7. And they pull you right back in. A very, very good, there are a couple little hiccups here and there, but a very good rare 4-game sweep on the road in Pittsburgh. I think it was like in the late 60s, the last time they were able to sweep the Pirates in 4 games in Pittsburgh. I mean, Jason, what else is there to say other than that this team is so good at times and so bad and frustrating at other times? I can't wrap my head around a team in Phillies or Philadelphia sports period as inconsistently great at times as the Phillies are.
I mean, it's overall, it's the hitting is that way.
Yeah.
The pitching is that way. And the overall team aspect is that way. It's like everything about them is inconsistent. And you're right. It sucks because just when you think it's done, they reel us right back in. And it's like, we want to sit here and focus on, obviously it's easier to focus on negatives, but we do got to look at some of the positives. And Alec Bohm, what a blessing Alec Bohm has been this year. I know he's made some boneheaded plays in the field, but
I mean, boneheaded plays, just inexperienced plays, maybe
he's been a little bit off. Let's say
he's been inconsistent. How about inconsistent in the field versus at the plate?
Yeah, but I'm just so thankful that Alec Bohm has is starting to round into form, and this is the Alec Bohm that we saw in his rookie season. Obviously, last year he took a step back, and that happens a lot though in Major League Baseball. Sophomore slumps, it's a real thing, and I think the key for Alec Bohm is that he's now starting to drive the ball again like he was back then. And that's how his average has kind of crept up over. I believe it's at 299 now.
299.
I believe he was at 260 at the beginning of July. So he raised his average 40 points in 1 month, dude.
It hit 300 yesterday. Then he got out.
Insane and absolutely hard to do in any sport to do that kind of a growth in that quick amount of time or short amount of time span. And I just love what I see from Alec Bohm. Obviously, Castellanos yesterday, after going 0 for 4 the previous day, he gets 4 hits.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Is he really coming out of the slump? I don't know, but I can't really say that, oh, well, Castellanos, still not doing anything because he had 4 hits yesterday. Schwarber,
Yeah.
once again, another home run. I really like what I see, overall, but you're right. We're a day away from the trade deadline, and I think the fact that they just came out and did pull off this sweep is all the more reason why Dave Dombrowski needs to make a nice move. And I'm not saying he's going to get a superstar, which
Right.
I think we've already curbed our enthusiasm when it comes to that. But
So I want to get into that. So, the trade deadline, we're less than 36 hours away. I mean, you talk about Bohm, and you were right to use him as the first guy to, start the show off with, because, I mean, he hit yesterday, Alec Bohm and Bryson Stott. Alec Bohm hit 300 yesterday. Then he had his last out, dropped him below. Bryson Stott got his average up to 200 yesterday. And then his last 2 plate appearances dropped him just below it again. You mentioned Castellanos and Schwarber and those guys. JT Realmuto is starting to hit actually as well. He's getting closer to 260. He's getting closer to an 8. He's 20, 30 points away from an 800 OPS. Who would have ever thought he would have gotten there? He's driving the ball. He's getting some home runs, opposite field home runs. I think the fact that it seems like it's not that these offensive players that have been struggling are just getting hot, like in a streaky sense, that they're figuring things out. And it just leads me to believe that although Bradley Falter had a very good game this weekend, that starting pitching needs to be the number one target. If Dave Dombrowski can only make one key move, not minor move, they made a move for a guy named Sosa from the Cardinals, whatever, not that kind of a move. If they can make one key move, it needs to be to bolster the starting pitching, because we still can't go out there with Bradley Falter. I know he pitched well the other day, but he can't be the answer out there right now. And we don't have anybody else to really bring in that situation. We don't even hear any talk about Zach Eflin at this point. Like what he's doing. Like he's completely off the radar at this point. It's got to be starting pitching, in my opinion. That is the number one thing that Dave Dombrowski needs to do in the next 36 hours.
Yeah, and so we talked about this on a few of the previous shows of, the kind of tiers of guys available. Obviously, Luis Castillo went over the weekend. That was after our show. We didn't really talk about it, but he did fetch a pretty big package. And I'm not sure if I'm the Phillies, if I would have been willing to do that. Montas, they're saying Montas is gonna fetch the same, probably. They're looking for the same type of.
Hold on, I'm going to cut you off for a second, because we talked about last week after the Benintendi trade that maybe the market wasn't as bad as people thought. Like, because Benintendi went for a pretty cheap package, so it just goes to show hitters you can get pretty cheap. You're going to have to spend to get a starting pitcher. So the question will be, like, where do you find that balance on how much to spend for a starting pitcher?
Yeah, well, I agree, and I know that there's names being bandied around. Everyone has their preference. Mm-hmm. The guy that I really think they should go for, and it kind of reminds me of this year's Kyle Gibson, but it's Tyler Mahle, mm-hmm. And the reason for that is he's controllable after next year, through next year. Noah Syndergaard I like, but he's not controllable. So, but he is a guy that I think if he comes here and he did well, you might be. I don't think he's going to get $20 million again for a year like he is this year. Even if he did have a good postseason, I don't think he's that kind of pitcher at this point because his injury history. Mm-hmm. You might be able to re-sign him on another 1-year prove-it deal. Mm-hmm. I would not be against him. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people keep saying Quintana. Listen, at this point, I'll take anything in pitching because we need a boost there, and you can't go into the postseason with the way that our staff is now. I don't think Eflin's coming back. I think the fact that you haven't heard anything signifies he's not coming back. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to really look forward to Eflin anyway at this point because I'm with you. I'm in the same camp as Phil Stifle. I am not a big Zach Eflin guy. I never have been. I think he's kind of overrated, and he's done nothing realistically to get my hopes up and think that he's going to be something in his career.
Hey, so two of the names, Quintana and Syndergaard, they intrigue me the most, and for a couple of reasons actually. So first off, seeing what Luis Castillo went for, getting a guy that's controllable past this year. There's so much competition for these guys. The price is going to be astronomical, and it might be posturing, but there were the reports that Dave Dombrowski does not want to move on from Abel or Painter or Hoppy or 4 or 5 of their top prospects. He didn't say untouchable, but he doesn't want to move them. You're not going to be able to get those controllable guys for that. Syndergaard and Quintana, they're both at points in their career where they're having. Look, I watched the Quintana start. He looked great against the Phillies. We talked about it on the show. Did we want to see Quintana pitch well, so that we know what we could get there, or pitch bad to lower his price? We saw he pitched pretty solidly, and they were very cautious, pulled him from the game pretty early, to save him, not let him risk getting injured, because they know they only signed Quintana for one reason this offseason, to flip him at the trade deadline. That was why they signed him. He's still, he's a little older than Noah Syndergaard, but he might want one more big payday. He's had big playoff game, stretches in his career. He's got the experience, so I like him. Noah Syndergaard, he's only 28 or 29 years old. He's not going to get a 5-year, $100 million contract. But there is a conceivable situation, if he pitches really well down the stretch for a playoff team, helps them get to the playoffs. Let's be honest. He's got a 3.83 ERA, a 1.2 WHIP on a really bad Angels team. He might have a better set of numbers if he was pitching on a contender, pitching on a team that scores some runs. So, he might even have, technically, I'm not an analytics guy. Maybe if you look at the analytics, maybe he's better than his basic numbers say. He could still get a 3-year contract in this offseason. Now, not 3 years, 60 or 70 million, but if he pitches well, he comes to a team like the Phillies in the playoff hunt, helps us get there, maybe pitches a game in the playoffs, pitches well. He's looking at a 3-year, $50 million, 4-year, $65 million contract, which at this point of his career, that's a big deal to get that one big, final, guaranteed contract. Whether it works out for that team or not, who knows? But he's got a lot on the line. And that's motivating. You know what I mean? That last big contract is a major motivating factor for a lot of players. I want that on this team. So that's why I kind of keep leaning towards Noah Syndergaard, that thought process and theory and that thread, that fighting and working your ass off to get that next big payday. That's where Noah Syndergaard is. Proving that he is Thor. When he came up with the Mets, he was hot thing. He's gotten hurt how many times in his career? He wants to prove that was behind him, that he really is a legitly good pitcher. He's got a lot on the plate right now to prove. And I love that motivating factor in getting Noah Syndergaard as my top choice.
Yeah, and that's where you and I differ. I'm more about, guys, controllable guys, and I'm looking for youth.
I prefer.
I'm looking for youth as well. I think a guy that's not really being mentioned a lot, but a guy that I would love the Phillies to get is Brady Singer from the Royals. He's only 25 years old. He was a second-round pick. He's obviously hasn't performed up to what their expectations were, and I know the Royals obviously they already traded Benintendi. He might cost you one of your guys, but he's not going to cost you your top guys. You might have to give up an O'Hoppy to get Brady Singer, but I would do it because he's controllable.
I think you I prefer to get the controllable guys, but the reports coming out that they're not going to move those top prospects, which is a wrong philosophy. That's why if we're looking at non-controllable guys, Noah Syndergaard is my top choice.
Yeah, and that's why I said I think I'm at the point where I think I'm at the point I think where they need to just do something. Mm-hmm. So if it is Syndergaard, I'd be okay. But I like I said, I think my mindset is I'm looking at. See, the problem is you don't really know what. Well, you already looked at it. You looked at the free agent pitching market. If the free agent pitching market was better, then I would kind of be like less apt to give up, those control. guys for controllable guys because you'd have an opportunity to sign somebody, but it's not. But then again, you got to remember every single year now, the new trend is all these players become available. I mean, you see it. Juan Soto wants out now. You know, who's going to be that guy next year, the pitcher that wants out of their team? That's when I trade my big package. I don't trade it now at the trade deadline when you're not really going to get a guy that is kind of going to move the needle majorly. I'm going to wait. So I think the Phillies are in somewhat of a good situation where you got like $100 million coming off the books. You got Segura coming off. You got Didi. You got, you know, Eflin. You got Gibson. You got all these guys' contracts coming off the books. You're going to have some money to spend. I'm looking at it as, okay, if you did do that, and like I said, if you go and get Syndergaard, then next year you kind of look at the free agent pitcher market and you say, okay, it's not good, but who could we go and target and trade? I mean, Phillies are notorious for trading for star pitchers. I mean, we did it with Roy Halladay. We did it with Cliff Lee.
2 times.
We're not opposed to that. So I know a lot of people are still focused on the hitting, but our hitting, we went out and signed Castellanos and Schwarber, and I get it. Castellanos has shit the bed, and it's his worst probably professional career, season of his career. But overall, you look at their offense. I'm not worried too much about the offense.
Question then, because you're saying that, let me ask you, as you're talking, it's making me think of a question. Will you be okay if they make, whether it's Syndergaard, whether it's Malley, any pitcher, they bring in any starting pitcher, and that's the only move, that and the Sosa move this weekend, and that's all Dave Dombrowski does. Will you be okay with continuing on the rest of the year with this Vierling, Odubel, Herrera center field platoon? Because in my opinion,
I would go more Vierling. I would get rid of it.
Well, absolutely. I agree. Vierling should be the guy every single game. I agree with that. It just doesn't seem to be the way that they're doing it. Will you be okay if they don't make a move for a center fielder? Because look, Michael Taylor, there have been a lot of, Benintendi was floated around a bunch of times. There have been center field names.
The only guy. Yeah, to answer your question, I'm already ready to answer it. Yes, the answer is yes, I would be okay, because the only guy I would have moved the needle would have been Benintendi. Okay. I don't want to just trade for a guy that hits 260 and plays defense. Matt Vierling can get me close to that. Right. Matt Vierling plays good defense. So I'm not worried about I don't want to trade just for the sake of trading. Right. If I'm trading, I need to get a guy that's going to help this team drastically. And there's not really anybody on the map that I can see offensively that you're going to bring in here without giving up, buku prospects. Right. I mean, we all would love Juan Soto, but that ain't happening. It's a pipe dream. I mean,
I don't even think so. Ohtani is a pipe dream. Soto's not even on the map. I don't think there's been even one discussion about bringing Juan Soto in here.
But it's funny. I saw so many people saying, "Oh, I don't want Ohtani. We have too many DHs." Dude, that's the kind of guy you trade for and you make it. You make it work. Yeah, come on, man. Ohtani is a game changer, dude. Not only on the at bats. He's a stud pitcher.
And not even that. As a business owner.
I don't even know how you quantify his value.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Even as a business owner, you work it out, because even if you never make the playoffs when you've got him, the amount of money you make by having Ohtani on your team, jersey sales, ticket sales, international TV, right? You know how many people tune in from, over there in Asia just to see their star Ohtani. Dude, the money you make by bringing in a guy like him, that's why I can never see the Angels trading him or moving on from him unless he leaves in free agency, because the money he makes that team, who cares about the playoffs? I mean, it's a massive amount. It's an investment that has a huge return on it, and that's kind of crazy that they would even consider moving him. But I would give him anything. Look, it comes down to prospects. And, interesting threads I saw this weekend. Look, again, we've had this conversation on other shows and previous regimes. Look, the Phillies have traded a lot of prospects in the past. During that 06 to 2012-13 run, we traded a lot of prospects, a lot of untouchables, a lot of guys we didn't trade that we should have traded, very few of them ever really worked out to much. I mean, Carlos Carrasco is probably the best prospect we ever traded. And he's a really good pitcher, but nothing special. We didn't lose. Hey, I remember there was another Michael Taylor. Before Dom Brown, we had a guy in our minor league system, Michael Taylor. He was untouchable. We traded him to Oakland. I believe he was in the Joe Blanton trade. He had 4 at-bats in his career in the major leagues because he was so bad. He was untouchable in our minor league system. He was ranked higher at one point than Dom Brown in our minor league system. I think I got the name right. I think it was Michael Taylor. And we were and we traded him for just a short-term pitcher in Joe Blanton. And look, Joe Blanton, let's not beat around the bush. Joe Blanton was important to our World Series win.
Joe Blanton wasn't a short-term pitcher. He was here 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had to extend him. I don't think he was. I think he was supposed to be a rental that we kept. I don't remember the whole situation. But look, Michael Taylor was this hot prospect. He was our number 1 prospect at one point in like 2007. We got rid of him for Joe Blanton. Who cares?
Well, the difference with that though was that team was already contending and was
Fair enough.
They were already in the playoffs. This team has not even made the playoff. That's why it's such a difficult thing, because it's hard to sell to the fans that are frustrated that we're not going all in. But in reality, in the offseason, they kind of did go all in. I mean, they went over the tax for the first time ever. So you can't say that they didn't go all in and they didn't try. It's just maybe they went for the wrong guys. I mean, we could say that now. Hindsight's hindsight. I mean, maybe they shouldn't have signed Castellanos. But who would have known that he would fall so far from grace that we're like looking at the guy like he can't even hit? I mean, that's like insane to me. Castellanos was probably the best, one of the best free agents out there. And we signed them, and now look at it. It's like, oh my God, what has happened? And I don't know if this season's just one of those seasons that you're going to say, oh, this season was lost, that he just doesn't turn it around.
I know what you're saying. So can I say something that's pretty damn embarrassing? It's been so long the Phillies have made the playoffs, and now that there's 7 teams from each league that make the playoffs, I don't even know how it works. Isn't it just the 6 and the 7 seed play a 1-game play-in kind of game? How do the playoffs work? I don't even know how the playoffs work at this point. But anyway, the point of it is, we are only a game and a half from not just being in the playoffs, from moving up a spot to the 6th seed. That's how close we are, and that's how this run is going. We might not even be the last team in anymore. It's embarrassing that I don't even know how the playoffs work, because honestly, since they've changed the rules so many times, I haven't even paid attention to the playoffs. Like, the Phillies have gotten me so off of baseball the last couple of years, the last 10 years, that I don't even pay attention to the playoffs. I don't even know how the system works. But look, we are the 7th seed. We are in the wild card spot right now. But we are trending better than the Padres, who are 1 step ahead of us. There's a conceivable situation. If Dave Dombrowski makes the right move, or 2 right now in the next 36 hours, there's a really good chance we could even overtake them. Now, we're not going to catch the Braves. I highly doubt it, unless we go out and we have 4 games, 5 games against them in the next week and a half. Maybe we make up some ground on them, but realistically, we don't catch the Braves. But we could solidify ourselves. You got to make this move right.
See, the crazy thing is after the 2006 Phillies and the 2007 Phillies, and even 08. Well, 08 they kind of went wire to wire, but I never say never when it comes to we can't make up ground, because I saw those 2 teams. Now, granted, those 2 teams were special and probably more special than this team. But I watched those teams, make up, like, I believe they won what? They made up 9 games in September, if I'm not mistaken, the one year. I mean,
07, we won what, 7 games in a row to close the season to overtake the Mets, and they lost like 7 games. Yeah,
I mean, so everything is possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Everything is always possible. Look, I want to transition to one other thing, because I think the trade deadline, obviously, there will be Dave Dombrowski will not go the next 2 days with only having that Sosa move be the lone move. The Sosa move, to me, intrigues me because I think it tells another story. that he's shopping Didi Gregorius right now. Because you've got the unofficial trade deadline move of Gene Segura back in the next 2 or 3 days, probably. He looks really good. I've seen some highlights. He's hitting the ball well, typical Gene Segura wise down there in his rehab stints. When he comes back, you can't bench Bryson Stott for Didi Gregorius. I know Didi's made some great defensive plays lately, but he still can't hit the ball. He's still not really hitting the ball at all. You can't take Alec Bohm off the field. You can't take Rhys Hoskins off the field. I really can't see them taking Bryson Stott off the field at this point. So does that Sosa move signify that they're looking at finding a way to get rid of Didi Gregorius, even if it's just for another minor league person to replenish their system after they, move a minor leaguer or two to whatever other move, part of the whole entire rotation of players? Or do you see it as that Stott and Gregorius are just going to be rotating at shortstop when Segura comes back?
I mean, I think it's a legitimate point. I think we've talked about, I would have moved Didi in the beginning of the year, but obviously who wants Didi? I don't know what the market is for Didi, but
there's probably no market.
I wouldn't be surprised that I think there's one team that might want him, and that would be the Yankees, because they like to bring back guys that they've had that know their system, and I think he is an American League guy at this point. I think he's a guy that, if he's going to help anybody, it's going to be off the bench or as a DH, kind of, maybe part-time. I don't think he has any use in the NL anymore. I think he's just, he just doesn't have the same range in the field anymore, and his bat is definitely not where it was, a couple of years ago. But if they could get anything for him, yeah, hell yeah, I would trade Didi.
You get a low-level prospect for him. It's worth moving him. And it just didn't make sense, the move they made. I mean, look, Jojo Romero coming off arm surgery, like a 7.80 ERA. You're not losing anything in giving up Jojo Romero. And Sosa actually last year, didn't he hit like 270 last year for the Cardinals? So he has had success in the majors. Really good utility type guy.
Young.
And he's young as well, absolutely. But you don't bring him in to an already crowded infield. You know what I mean? Unless you're already planning on moving somebody else. Because, again, Segura will be back. You're going to put Segura right at the top of your – whether he comes back Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever game he is back for, he's going to be in that two-hole the first game back. There's no doubt about it. So something's got to give with the surplus of – it's like the Eagles with 19 cornerbacks that they got on their roster. Now the Phillies have 75 guys that play second and shortstop on their roster now. It's like something's got to give there. So I don't know what it is, but there's got to be a reason why he brought Sosa in. If whether it's DD going somewhere, another trade, I don't know. Something's got to happen. They're not going to just cut DD at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, it is kind of strange. I mean, I'm looking at Sosa's numbers now.
Is it like 170 this year?
He's only appeared in 53 games. Like, that's a weird trade. Yeah. It really is. I don't know.
It's a question mark. It's a move you make when you're planning 2 and 3. It's like you move the pawn out first, and then you set your moves up in chess. You know what I mean? It's like this was a move made to set up another move, in my opinion.
I mean, maybe Dave Dombrowski's posturing. Maybe he is going to go all in and trade a package. I don't know, man. Maybe he is going to go for Soto. I don't know. I don't know. I know it's crazy.
Posturing, and he's really going to be trading Bryson Stott in a big package.
But that's what I mean. I don't know. It just feels like that's a real weird move.
Is that weird that just popped in my head that maybe Bryson Stott? I know that would piss a lot of fans off, including me, because I mean the kid's got potential. Is it crazy to think? I'm sorry, buddy.
If you were going to make a deal for
I
any
don't
of
know
these,
nothing about the Dodgers-Giants game. Sorry, I really don't.
If you were going to make a deal for a guy like, I'm throwing names out here, Ohtani or Soto, if they were the two names that you really, as Dombrowski wanted, I think you almost undoubtedly would have to give up Stott because they want major league ready guys now and they want prospects. So I don't know, man, but it is kind of weird to go out and get a guy like Sosa when you already have that.
Because you got Stott, Segura, Didi, Camargo they demoted to AAA, but you still got him. You got Munoz. You got a lot of guys for two positions there. Somebody's the odd man out. They're not going to just cut Didi because of the money they pay him. I mean, I can't see the Phillies paying him that amount of money to walk away. I don't know. Something's happening. There's going to be something that gives there. Something. I don't know.
I think every year, you know how like a lot of times there's a lot of chatter and then you hear the deals like, you know, you see it in the NFL, you see it in hot, you know, in all the sports, but then there's always a couple deals at deadlines that come out of nowhere that you were like, what? Like, holy shit. You make like a big, like, oh my God, like I never heard that coming. Like, and that's why I'm wondering if like Dombrowski's just being the silent sniper here, and like he's out and like.
I mean, we know Dave Dombrowski. I mean, I didn't prep for this portion of the conversation, but Dave Dombrowski's MO is big, bold moves and trade deadline moves and big trades. I mean, he did it with Detroit. He did it with Boston. That's his MO. And he's won World Series as leaders of organizations by making big, bold trades. Something big happening here? I don't know. I'm just thinking. I mean, I don't know. I know we talked about Frankie Montas and Castillo before and, you know, some of these other controllable names. I don't know if any of them are worth that huge of a package. You know, you got to move some guys, but not like everything. But, you know, it wouldn't surprise me, based off of Dave Dombrowski's track record, if he's the type of guy that it wouldn't surprise me that he's the type of guy that would go out and at least make a play for an Ohtani or a Soto or anybody like that. Because that's just what he is. He's a big, bold move type guy. I don't know. It's a thought process.
I mean, there's always, like I said, where there's smoke, there's fire. And a lot of times with these rumors, you know, sometimes there's truth to it. But I think sometimes GMs, I mean, we see Howie Roseman play this game all the time. Howie Roseman is probably the best at kind of playing poker. And people, you know, having people feel one thing and then going out and doing another. I mean, Howie Roseman, like, silently kind of told us he was going to get a wide receiver, but we didn't, like, kind of pick up on it. But, like, then he did, and he went out and got AJ. Like, AJ was – I remember AJ Brown had been talked about as far as, like, wanting out, but nobody really had him on the radar. And then come draft time, like, when we're, like, sitting there, I remember we were doing the show together, and you all of a sudden, like, someone popped in and said, we got AJ Brown. We were like, what? Like, it was just out of nowhere because you didn't hear any chatter that day. You didn't hear any chatter that week. But I think sometimes GMs will go out and they will say stuff. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true. When he was saying about the prospects, I think what he really meant was, I'm not going to trade these prospects unless it's for a package that's worthy of it. If you're going to move your guys, then you're going to do it for a bold move where it's like, oh my God, we're getting a superstar. You're not going to make those kind of trades where you're getting a guy that's like minimal, or like even for a Castillo, I don't know if he was that much of a game changer, like where you're like, oh my God, we're getting a Jake DeGrom type player. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's when you trade your package of like O'Hoppe, you know, Painter.
Sorry. I've been distracted here. As you were talking there, I was checking something on a Philly stat, but something popped up on my page. So the Deshaun Watson suspension ruling has come down about 10 minutes ago. So I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to transition real quick to that. I did want to talk Eagles a little bit. We'll see how long this Deshaun Watson conversation goes. But Deshaun Watson was suspended for 6 games this season. 6 games. Okay. And both the league and Deshaun Watson released statements yesterday, whatever the ruling was, they were going to abide by it. Basically made me think that they already knew what the suspension was last night.
Fucking joke.
6 games. Calvin Ridley gets a full year for gambling, which I was okay with, but Deshaun Watson gets 6 games. He is allowed to practice throughout entire training camp. He is allowed to return to practice with the team week 4, and then week 6 is his last week of his suspension. I'm disappointed. I'm pissed. I think the league has a serious issue with how they handle these domestic violence situations. A serious issue on what they value heavily suspended versus not heavily suspended things in this league. They could have made a statement with Deshaun Watson. They could have. They could have kicked him out of the damn league. But he gets 6-game suspension. I was prepared for this. I knew this was what was going to happen. But once you see it, the breaking news headline, 6 games, my heart sinks, my gut sinks. I get this uneasy feeling in my stomach. Like, I don't even know how to put into words how disappointed I am in this situation. Breaks my heart right now. It's a damn shame. Jason?
I mean, I don't even want to talk about it. I'm annoyed. I'm seriously annoyed at this point because I knew it was coming, but I didn't want to believe it. And a lot of people I saw saying, "Oh, it's going to be 10 to 12 game suspension," and I was like, "Okay, I could live with that." This is absolute disgrace. I mean,
that's at least
I should have known. I should have known, though. It's the
I
NFL.
knew this was coming too. It's frustrating.
It's the NFL, and I don't know what else to say. Like, I really don't. Other than it's the NFL.
So I don't really know who this Judge Sue Robinson was. That was the one that the arbitrator, whoever came up with the suspension. I don't even know who hired her, but her quote, and I'm reading this from Tom Pelissero's Twitter account. Judge Sue Robinson's decision says Deshaun Watson issued a pattern of behavior was egregious, but notes that the behavior was non-violent sexual conduct. So that is why she chose 6 games. And he was not fined. Adam Schefter is now reporting there was no fines associated with it whatsoever. How can it be? So non-violent sexual misconduct is okay. But if it was violent sexual misconduct, it wouldn't be okay? Sexual misconduct, period. Should be on it. It should be the problem.
I mean, I don't even know what to say because I listen. We've already kind of voiced our opinions on so many multiple shows and multiple platforms and how we feel about it. But I just think that, unfortunately, it's something you got to live with because these guys, when it comes to athletes, it's money, and the NFL continues to be one of the worst leagues when it comes to punishment and divvying out punishment and the way that it handles punishment. I mean, how could Calvin Ridley, which, like I said, I believe he deserved a suspension for gambling, but how can you tell me with a straight face that Calvin Ridley deserves a year for gambling?
Well, again,
this guy was a sexual predator. I don't care if it was happy endings. I don't give a shit. The guy obviously has an issue with women. Okay. And this is a slap in the face to all women. The NFL, what they're doing here just basically shows you can do whatever you want if you're a football player. And it's bullshit.
It really is.
I'm sorry. It's bullshit.
No. Again, like we both said, we kind of knew this was the way it was going to go down. And as George said, the Browns must have had a good feeling that this was the way it was going to go down based off of the fact that the money they gave him, the trade that they offer. I get all that. And Casey's saying that he was not found, guilty, but he did settle everything. Yeah, that's Goodell's bailout. I get that. I don't know. I almost need to stop this conversation right here and just.
Yeah, I don't even want.
I want to talk more about it, but I need to regroup and regather my thoughts.
Yeah, I need to have time to talk about it.
No, it's not even just the time. I need time to compose my thoughts a little bit better because, like I said, I knew this was going to happen, and I still didn't compose my thoughts enough to say the right words the right way. I'm just disappointed. I really hope that some point the NFL would make a bold statement on this kind of things. And I disagree with you. I think a year for gambling is fine. I really do. You look at Pete Rose. He's been suspended for how long?
Yeah,
Little
Phil, you disagree with me, but if it's a year, then this guy deserved a year.
This
That's
guy
what I'm
deserves better than
saying.
you.
The
Exactly.
punishment needs to fit the crime.
Exactly. And
I'm
that,
saying
that's
that gambling is bad, yes, but for a year suspension, and this guy gets 6 games, that's ridiculous. How can that even be okay?
yeah, I agree.
I I don't get it. I just don't get it.
So the Deshaun Jackson suspension, or Deshaun Watson will cost him $333,000 because of the way they worked his contract.
Ooh.
So I'm just, I know it's like a slap on the wrist. And he was paid in full last year. Yeah.
Look, listen. I firmly believe that everyone deserves a second chance. And I'm not one of these people that's a get off my lawn guy. And I'm going to sit here and be like, Deshaun Jackson, Deshaun
I
Watson.
just said it too. Exactly.
I'm not going to sit here and be like, okay, the guy is like, not capable of changing or being a better person. But he obviously did some things that were disgusting. And whether it was a criminal or not, irregardless of that, these women were obviously made to feel uncomfortable, and it upset them to the point where they filed lawsuits. Okay. It doesn't just happen because somebody wants a money grab. I believe that money grabs do happen, but there was too much here to just say that this is nothing and let's just brush it under the rug. But that's what it seems like we're doing here. At least the NFL, because the 6-game suspension to me is basically, it's not even half a season, especially with the 17 games. So you're not hurting his pocket, and you're really not hurting him in any way other than just saying, okay, here's your punishment, and now you'll play. Yeah. And that's sad. That's sad to me. Mm-hmm. And like you said, I need more time to get my thoughts composed.
I want to read the whole thing and dive into it more this week, but it's it's frustrating. It really is. Disappointing.
Yeah. But I could have known. I shouldn't be upset because I almost kind of saw it coming.
All right, let's get off that topic. Let's stop. We'll dive into it more this week. Yeah, we'll dive into it for sure this week. Yeah, I'm reading comments here on my screen here. One was found guilty, one wasn't. More morality was taken out of it. The NFL picks and chooses when the greater good is what matters. Exactly. But also, KC, the NFL worries so much about their shield, the logo. And I don't know. I get what KC's saying. I do. But yeah, no. Yeah, it's pointless to get frustrated because we have no control over it. Well, we do have control of it, but what we can control won't make a difference. What me and Jason can control won't dent it. If me and Jason stop talking football, if me and Jason stop watching football, it isn't going to make a difference. So let's move on to more important sports talk. They're Eagles. We'll talk more about that later this week. Eagles training camp. We've had a couple more practices. Sorry, I'm trying to regroup my mind here. Couple more practices. I think the biggest story to come out of this weekend, obviously the offense is behind the defense, but to me that's almost like a non-story, Jason, because the defense is always ahead of the offense at the start of training camp. We see this every year with every team just about. You see little bursts of big plays from quarterbacks to wide receivers, but for the most part, defenses figure it out a little quicker than the offenses. Am I right on that?
I mean, absolutely. I think you're going to see so much ups and downs and reports on Jalen Hurts because, once again, you have the faction of reporters that, fit the bill of wanting him to fail. And then you have the people that actually report on what they see as opposed to reporting every single up or down that he has, every missed throw that he has. I mean, it's like that's why I'm not even watching Twitter at this point, because it's like every time you turn on Twitter, like Jalen Hurts had a poor throw or Jalen Hurts threw a 60-yard touchdown. Like I'm not. It's training camp. I'm not going to get high or low from what I hear from these guys reporting that are basically not even watching the whole practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that I'm going to like get overly excited about or overly pissed off about, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
It
I'm
makes
kind of
perfect.
keeping an open mind, and I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to wait. My real excitement and fervor is going to come day one of the season when I actually see the finished product and what's going to happen. I'm not going to try to let myself do what I do every year. And every year I get my hopes up because of reports at practice or, and I don't want to be that way because let's face it, it's a long season. It's a longer season now. It's an extra game. And I want to be excited about this team. And I am excited about this team. But it's hard to get excited when you turn on Twitter and it's just like, all you see sometimes is the negative.
Right. But, I mean, and, people that are talking like that, the one point I will say is that we crave football, especially in this city. Football is, but let's be honest, it's the top dog, what I mean, when it comes to sports. And, we haven't had football since January. We're seeing a little glimpse of it now on the field. So we're bound to get a little overly excited about every little detail that we see reported.
No, and I get that, but you know what? You have to have the mindset that this is training camp. In training camp, usually the best thing to do and the thing that they do is work on things that they struggle with. So I saw that report about this is the perfect, transition. The report about Hassan Reddick, about how he was dropping back in the pass coverage, and all these people got triggered and were like freaking out, like, oh my God, if this is what they're going to do, and all that Jonathan Gannon did was have him work on something that he's not that good at. That's the point of training camp, to get better at things that you aren't good at or go to things that make you feel uncomfortable. It's being uncomfortable with the things that you need to get better at.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
You say it all the time on podcasts, like how, some of the best growth that you have, and I'm the same way, is when you deal with things that you're not comfortable with.
Right.
Like, I'm not super comfortable with hosting a show, but the only way to get better at it is to do it. You can't get better at pass coverage or dropping back into coverage if you're not doing it. So I look at this as it's training camp. But people are like, oh my God, Hassan Reddick was signed to get sacks. And now all of a sudden, are we going to play a defense where all he does is drop back? Dude, I guarantee you, they didn't sign him to drop back in coverage. They signed him to be
If he's dropping back in coverage, my 18.5 sack prediction is so far off target then. All right. I want to talk about one thing here. We got about 10, 12 minutes left in the show. It's Miles Sanders. Obviously, again, overreacting to initial reports, overreacting because, it's football. We haven't had football since January. We got to overreact. Miles Sanders was the running back 2 on the first day of training camp, and Kenneth Gainwell was running back 1, and everybody's overreacting. But Miles Sanders, and I don't know if maybe I've missed it, but Miles Sanders never seemed to be a guy that, made comments like, people have been talking about his fumbles or his drops or his injuries for his first 3 years here in Philly. And I never really heard him get emotional or testy or anything like that. When he was asked, I believe it was after day 2, full practice on Saturday, I believe is when it was, asked about, what his expectations for 2022. He wasn't even asked about the running back 1, running back 2. He was asked about his expectations for 2022. And Sanders says, I just want to get the respect that I fully deserve. That's all. And then he went on to say that he doesn't know who wrote the article. Who wrote the article that I wasn't the running back 1? So he obviously is reading into the social media reports, reading into checking out social media. And I know there's, you can't do away with it, but is there a point in time that certain athletes just need to, maybe like during training camp or during seasons, just have to limit the amount of time and what they do on social media if they're not thick-skinned? Because obviously, whatever he read and saw on social media about the first day of practice rubbed him the wrong way. Now, whether that gives him an edge or not, I don't know. I mean, obviously, we've seen that Jalen Reagor can't handle the social media pressure. I mean, he's deleted his social media 2 or 3 times because it got too overwhelming for him. You know, I love that Miles Sanders wants to earn the respect he deserves, but getting frustrated, testy, pissy, whatever you want to call it, about writers and what they're reporting and stuff like that. There's got to be a fine line with athletes and social media, in my opinion.
Well, to your point, I think the right reaction for Miles Sanders, obviously, after the initial reaction of him overreacting or being testy, the real good way to come out and react to it is to play with an edge and use it as a fire to make you have your best season of your career.
Right.
That's what I would do. If people are talking bad about me or criticizing me in the workplace or whatever, yeah, of course you have the initial being upset that people don't like you or people think negatively of you. But I'm going to use that as motivation. And I'm going to be like, you know what? I'll show you. Mm-hmm. You're talking shit on me. I'm going to come out and I'm going to do this, or I'm going to run for 1,000 yards this year. That's what I would do. Mm-hmm. More athletes would do that, kind of come out and just use it as motivation. Not as a negative, like turn the negative into a positive. If you're upset about how people are talking about you, then flip the script.
Right. So I was fine with his earn the respect I deserve statement. Because look, we talked about it briefly earlier this last week. Miles Sanders is like this enigma to me. Like he seems to have every tool in the book. You know what I mean? Like he's athletic. He seems like he can catch the ball. He's had little stretches where he's dropped the ball. He's a home run hitter. He literally, there was a point where I thought he was being held back by Saquon Barkley at Penn State. Like I saw so much potential and talent in Miles Sanders, and he just hasn't really fully lived up to the talent on paper versus the talent on the field. There was a point where a couple years ago I wanted to, before I said trade him, before that I had said give him an extension now before he fully bursts out and needs Derrick Henry type money. You know what I mean? Like I really saw major talent in Miles Sanders. He just hasn't put it all together. Use this to motivate, but then taking a dig at the reporters and be like, well, which one of you wrote it? Then that shows the opposite. Instead of the motivation, now you're holding grudges against these guys. And that's where, again, just leave it as is. Just say, yeah, I'm going to get my respect that I deserve.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think you have to go further than that statement. I think that's perfect.
This is a great point here by George. The younger generation, they don't remember a time without social media. That is totally true. And maybe that's part of it because it's been part of their life since day one. And they don't know how to ignore it because they've been on it since they were 12 years old.
I mean, he's obviously, listen, like I said, we all get criticism in one way or another, right? Whether it's in the workplace, whether it's at home, whether it's anywhere in life. Like everyone faces it. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Like if you don't have a thick skin as an athlete, then you kind of got to look at where are your priorities. If you're worrying about social media anyway, shouldn't you worry about other things and not even worry about social media? At least that's what I would think. I mean, if I'm an athlete at this point and I'm in the NFL, my one focus right now is training camp. And I think that just shows you the differences in eras of training camps. I mean, training camp is not the same. I mean, I remember going back in the day, and like I said, I got to see guys like Reggie White, Randall Cunningham, and that was when it was at Westchester. And it was just a different entity. They went away and they stayed together in dorms. This is they just arrive at the NovaCare, they practice, and then they go home. It's totally different. And I don't know if all teams are doing that because I look at around the league and I see other teams that have practicing, it looks like they're practicing on a college football, field. So I don't think every team has that enigma that the Eagles have where they're at the NovaCare complex. And some teams kind of do have full-fledged practice. I mean, I heard the Lions coach saying they were going hard every day. And then you have Nick Sirianni, who's taking the we'll practice one day and we'll take 2 days off. Like, I don't get the Eagles' philosophy. I think it's a little bit concerning, if you ask me. I don't know where you're standing on it.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked
concerned about the fact that they don't want to practice that much. Like, to me,
it's the analytics way of doing things. You know, it's the protect your athlete's way of doing things.
Not that.
You know, KC saying social media is the new newspaper. But the thing is, KC, you know, back in the 80s and early 90s, you could just not pick up the newspaper and read it. Every player, every athlete has their phone in their hands. The only way for them to ignore it now is just turn social media off. And that's the – I mean, we look at the whole Nick Castellanos thing and how that spiraled out of control, and you had reporters battling. It's the keyboard warrior, you know, the access to these athletes, and there's no repercussions. You make a burner account, you say whatever the hell you want to an athlete, and you get away with it. You can have your burner account, you know, kicked off, you know, whatever. You know, that's the problem right there. And like I said, I don't want athletes to not be able to live. I really don't. I think the athletes should be able to live their life. I've seen plenty of celebrities and athletes in public. Outside of when I was 13 and I tried to get Lenny Dykstra sing autograph, outside of that, I've never bothered an athlete ever once or a celebrity once for a picture, an autograph, anything. I just feel like it's better just to let them live their life and let them enjoy themselves. But we know that's not the way it is. Most people will, autograph. I don't know if you saw the video, James Harden, Joel Embiid, a couple other Sixers coming out of a restaurant in Philly, I think it was. They were all out to dinner. And there were cameras everywhere. You know, people walking right up to the car. You know, the door's closed. James Harden's closing his door. Camera right in his face. Yo, James, I got a question for you. You know, totally different world that we live in now than we did 30 years ago. And, you know, it's almost like they may do a little bit of it, but I almost feel like the NFL and teams need to spend more time with these athletes, the young athletes, when they do a rookie symposium in the NFL where all rookies have to go to this I don't know what you want to call it, a meeting for like a few days and learn about life in the NFL. They definitely should probably spend a little bit more time teaching these young people how to handle themselves in these moments, because it's got to be tough for them. It really does.
I mean, absolutely. I don't think that, you know, I mean, you could say it's unfair because, you know, I know a lot of people will sit there and have the attitude, well, they're athletes and they make money. Yeah, but they're human beings. They're not just athletes. You can't forget that part of it. Yes, they make more money because they play a sport, but it's not like you can just say, well, they haven't earned that right or they haven't worked for it. Yeah, it took a lot to get where they got. I mean, you don't just make the NFL by just being born. I mean, you got to put a lot of time and effort into that. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. So, yeah, okay, they make more money than us, but that doesn't give you the right to go on social media and call them an F and A hole or whatever you want to do and talk the way that you want and think that it's okay, because that's not cool. It's not cool to do to anybody, whether they're an athlete or whether they're a homeless guy down the street. I mean, you just don't talk that way to people. But some people are clowns. And unfortunately, with social media, we have a new term called trolls. And there's a lot of them too. And they try to get at us. We've had plenty of that.
All right, we're going to wrap it up for the day there. I've got a busy day at work today. So we started 5 minutes early. We're ending about 6 minutes early here this morning. We didn't get to everything on the agenda. I do want to bring up my poll question from this weekend. We'll get to it in the next episode tomorrow. We'll see if the Phillies make any trades. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I'm going to reformulate my thoughts on the Deshaun Watson situation. Maybe make another statement about that tomorrow. We got lots on the agenda this week, trending the AM. New intro music, a new little background, little this, little that. Always trying to grow the show. Make sure if you're watching on replay, you hit the like and subscribe button there on YouTube. We greatly appreciate that support. Everybody have a great day. For Jason Voorhees, I'm Phil Stiefel, and go Birds.
Go Birds.